Hey everyone, welcome to The Creek. My name is Jared Meller and I'm the ministry lead here. I want to take a second to thank you for checking out our channel and invite you to hit the subscribe button down below so you make sure you can get all of our content. We make content 3 times a week and I wanted to take a couple of minutes here to welcome you to our channel, but also to kind of walk you through what it is The Creek does, what it is The Creek even is, and to tell you a little bit about how we approach ministry. Our approach is broadly divided into 3 streams: the people, the place, and the purpose of The Creek. And so let's start with our purpose. If you've spent any time with us in the last year, you know that my team and I have spent most of that time really trying to kind of sell people on the idea of community. We did this by telling people what they would get out of it. Don't get me wrong, we put in the work, we learned to read our communities like sociologists, and we approached it like you would an entrepreneurial business. The thing is though, that at the end of the day, The Creek's not a business. There's no tangible that we're trying to bring to market, and so when we try to compete in a space we're just not prepared for, it was frustrating. So we pivoted, and we pivoted toward purpose, recognizing that The Creek isn't just another community organization, because it's rooted in the fact that we believe 2,000 years ago, a guy announced himself to be the Son of God, predicted his death, died, and then rose from the dead. Understanding that that's the thing that makes us different from other groups defines our purpose, and it shapes our approach to everything else. The Hebrew prayer, known as the Shema, was the cornerstone of the religion that Jesus practiced, and he went so far as to say that it was the foundation for all of his theology. It begins like this: "Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one, and you shall love him with all your heart and all your soul and all your mind and all your strength." And a little while later, it continues to say, "And you shall love your neighbor as yourself." A decade ago, The Creek started with an idea to begin envisioning what church might look like in South Calgary away from a building and apart from the trappings of modern religion. To ask, what does it really look like to gather people in a neighborhood setting for worship? This was my call that I stepped into as a pastor, and it's what we've been exploring for the last year or so. But originally, we were planning on doing what most church startups do, and we had a space booked. We were going to launch worship on Good Friday in partnership with friends that you'll be hearing from shortly on this channel. And we were going to try to gather people in worship. But then COVID hit, and suddenly the idea of gathering with a group of strangers didn't seem like it was going to be the greatest idea. So again, we pivoted, and this time we pivoted hard. I've said before on this channel and on our other channel that it wasn't so much a pivot as it was a reimagining, but that pivot just sounds better. In that pivot, we realized 3 truths: that the church is at its best when it's set free from the kind of arbitrary boundaries that have characterized it locally; that 2, loneliness sucks in every context; and 3, that the people we've been trying to reach already live in a world with built-in digital and analog fluidity. The Creek is ultimately a recognition that online is not just a tool people or churches can use to gather people at a time or in a place, but is itself a place. And it's a place where we feel called to recapture that basic idea at the heart of Shema: all of God with all of me. A content-based ministry can never live up to its own definition of church. Church is supposed to be a place where word is preached, but also a place where sacraments are administered. Church is always fundamentally about people. And so while we think we can create great content that aims to disciple hearts, heads, and hands, if those people are never drawn into communion with each other and with God, then it doesn't meet the definition of church. We call this ministry The Creek because the dream of it was born out of a desire to reach out to the 250,000 men, women, and children who live in the communities of Calgary south of Fish Creek, and to reach out to them with the love of God. Think about this. If those communities were their own city, it would be the 4th largest municipality in Alberta. And in that area, if you walk around the neighborhoods, there are less than a dozen churches you can find just by walking. Purpose has to meet people. Where those streams cross, we call it our afterwards gathering. Afterwards is a monthly gathering of men, women, and children who meet together to share a meal, who pray for each other, and then who celebrate the feast of God that we call Eucharist. Afterwards is a community of people who are passionate about ministry in their local neighborhood and who want to gather with friends and neighbors to reflect on the content of the Creek together and then use that as an engagement point to launch into their neighborhood with God in their specific context. Now, full disclosure, there are some huge COVID hurdles around figuring out afterwards and how to launch it, so we're not planning our first gathering of afterwards until sometime in the fall. And so we hope that you will follow us on social media to make sure that you get all the latest information about that gathering or find out how to start your own afterwards program. But there is actually a third mark of the church, that it is where word is preached and where sacraments are administered, but it's also actually where discipline is rightly carried out. Most of us don't have a good experience with the definition of discipline, and so it tends to get dropped off of the formulations of what church can be in 2020, but I want to take a second here to try to change your mind on it, or at least deconstruct it, because it actually shares a root with what might be the key to everything else that we do. Its root, discere, is the Latin word for both discipline, discipleship, and discernment. It's the etymological idea of being prepared for something that's coming up. It's the idea of being formed. And I'm not sure if the disciples of Jesus had any idea what they were being called into or being prepared for, but Jesus was disciplining them for something. And without fail, again and again, throughout the stories in the Gospels, what Jesus was training and building and preparing and forming his disciples for was to send them out. Jesus was in the sending business. It was this characteristic the church has historically called its apostolicity, its sense of sentness. The Creek is built on the belief that God's people are nothing if we're not sent. Everything that we do and say and are flows out of the idea that we are sent, and our sentness always begs the question of a sendee. Who are we sent to? For us, that's the question of where purpose meets place. And so, every day we are trying to follow news and stories in Evergreen, in Shaughnessy, Millrise, Shawnee Slopes, Midnapore, Sundance, Somerset, Bridlewood, Chaparral, Walden, Silverado, Legacy, Mackenzie Town, Mackenzie Lake, New Brighton, Copperfield, Seaton, Mahogany, Cranston, and Auburn Bay. Because these are the communities that the Creek lives in. These are the communities that the Creek is invested in. And so these are the communities that every single day we are praying for, we are listening attentively to, and we are seeking to partner with to see what God is going to do south of Fish Creek here in Calgary. There's no world where this video is going to be the whole story of the Creek. It's barely the beginning, but our plan is to keep releasing content that helps us disciple our minds, our hearts, and our hands together to grow life with God south of Fish Creek. If you have questions, please feel free to shoot me an email or drop us a line on Facebook, on Instagram, on Twitter, or on the back end of the channel here on YouTube. And as always, please make sure you hit the subscribe button and click the bell icon so you get notified of all of our new content here at the Creek. For now, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. All the best, and we'll see you soon. Cheers.